Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would answer all your questions about my first year at uni and about York in general, just kind of mash it all into one video. I asked on Instagram for questions like 2 hours ago, so and I can do a second part to this as well if I don't get through like everything people want to know. So if there's more questions that you have, make sure you comment them down below and I'll try and answer them in a future video, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about uni. Like, before we get into the questions, I may as well tell you I was a first year doing psychology at York. Okay, this is a funny one. We're starting off with something that I don't see many people talking about, but did you get lost at the beginning? And literally, I've never heard people talk about this before, but I used to get lost in town all the time. Oh, iced coffee. First term, I could not go into town on my own without having to use Google Maps at least once. And I feel like when you first go into town, it's probably in Freshers Week on a night out, and it always really confusing. Like, I remember my first time ever wandering around York at uni, because I had been before, was like so confusing because I was drunk and I was like, where even was I that night? Like, where did I go? So we walked from a club to McDonald's and like literally I was so confused the whole time, and then we walked to a bus stop and like we were basically just took everywhere in Freshers Week. So I literally didn't like know York at all. Like, I was so confused. I don't know, I still don't know it that well perfectly. Like, I still sometimes get Google Maps up, but usually I'm fine now. Or like you'll forget where a shop is in town or something like that. Like the actual uni, like I don't get lost around there at all. It's super easy to navigate, but in town, confusing. The way I learned my way around town best definitely was when like I went in on my own and I had to like navigate myself rather than just like relying on other people. Someone has asked, this is about York specifically because it's collegiate. What college are you part of? How does it work with applying for accommodation? So it's not really like Oxford and Cambridge where you literally, and Durham as well I think, where you literally apply to the college. Like, you apply to the uni and then you kind of get assigned to a college based on what accommodation you apply to. So you have like a list of like 8 and then you just like put your favourite one first. I got my first choice and then you just kind of rank them. It is also first come first serve, well they say it is, but I applied like a month after they'd sent out the accommodation and I still got my first choice. So yeah, you're basically just assigned whatever and that's your college. I think I was also, part of the reason that I got my first choice was because I said that I was happy to live in a viewing flat on an open day. Like, people would come look around our flat and our room and we had to like tidy it and stuff, but we did get paid, so it wasn't really like that big of a deal. Someone's asked, did you get homesick, and if so, how long until you got used to being away? I think this really depends on the person. I didn't massively experience homesickness because I think I just really wanted to get out of where I was living and like go and live somewhere bigger with more going on. But there were points like if I was already feeling sad for whatever reason, or if I was hungover, I'd be more likely to like miss home. But I wasn't majorly homesick, and I think part of the reason that I didn't suffer too much was because I literally didn't go home at all. I think in first term my sister and my mum came up twice, my dad and my sister and his partner came up once, and then second term my dad, his partner and my sister came up once, and I went down to London to meet my mum and my sister. Like, I didn't go home at all, but I did see my family, so I think that's kind of the way to do it. Like, because if you're going home a lot, you don't really get into the routine of uni, it's easier to get homesick. But I think for most people it's like around a month, 6 weeks, if it's really bad, when you'll start to kind of get into the swing of it. And obviously, like, if you keep like just taking part in events, even if you're not like feeling it or just putting yourself out there, it will hopefully get better and you'll kind of establish a routine in a friend group and stuff, and that can really help. Okay, I'll put this into context before I read out the question. At York there's 2 different campuses. So I lived on East Campus, which is like more modern, and that has like the law school, the business school, but it hasn't got the majority of like the lecture theatres on it. And then there's the main campus, which was the original one, like the older one with the older accommodation and majority of the like departments. So I lived on East Campus and I studied on West, so it's like a 15-20 minute walk between the two, but there's like a free bus service running between. Did you enjoy living on the other campus and having to travel every day? And I think there was definitely pros and cons, but loads and loads of people travel between the campuses every day, and this is like a main question that I get asked about, is it worth living on East if you're going to have to travel to West all the time for lectures? And I thought it was fine. I thought it was quite nice to like have like a place where I studied and a place where I was at home. It was a bit of a faff, like I had to get up like earlier than people who lived on West to go to lectures, so if I had 9 AM I had to be outside my flat waiting for my friends by 8:30 because the buses were sometimes slow, and then you had to walk from the bus stop to the department as well. But all in all, if you just stick to like a half an hour before the event that you're going to rule, you will be fine. Like, I was very rarely late. You usually end up being earlier. I was speaking to someone who's on West as well, and he was saying, because his accommodation is literally next to our lecture theatre, he'd be like, yeah, I'd get out of bed like 10 minutes before the lecture, so you're actually more likely to be late, I think, if you don't have that sort of structure in. I also thought that East Campus was really pretty. Like, it had the big lake and it was all modern and like green, and I think the accommodation on East is so much nicer as well. East does have a reputation for being like the place where all the rich people are because the accommodation is nicer, but like it's not really the case. So to answer the question, I really like living on East. Okay, how much do you have to study in university? Oh my god. As like a study YouTuber, I feel like this is an appropriate question to answer. Obviously, depends on the course, the uni, the year, but I had 5 2-hour lectures a week. I had a 1-hour practical, and then every 4 weeks I would have 5 1-hour tutorials spread across the 4 weeks. So I went to the majority of my contact hours. I probably missed like 5 lectures in the year, and then we also had like big practicals that we ended up having to write practical reports on that we had to go and participate in. So that was like the contact hours, and it really depends on like how much work you want to put in, because I could have got through first year doing a lot less, but also I definitely could have done a lot more work. So we had like a reading before every lecture for most modules, and that would be usually about 30 pages, could be more, could be less. And I'm a really slow reader, and I was I always was really thorough with it and like made sure I made notes, so they could take me like 2 hours, which is quite bad. But people I spoke to said they literally just skim read the readings and they were literally fine. So I usually went through my lecture notes afterwards, or wanted to go through my lecture notes after the lecture and combine it with the reading notes. So I had like one set of notes for each lecture, and that would take about an hour, I'd say, because I would read through the lecture notes, familiarise myself with them, and then go through the reading and move anything from the reading that wasn't already in the lecture notes to like a suitable place in the lecture notes, so that I had like one set. And then we had essays, and we didn't have loads of essays. We ended up having 2 practical reports and 2 essays, and they were like 1,500 words. They would usually take me like, I would usually do it like the weekend before in a long period of time, so 3 or 4 hours a day for a few days, and that would get it done. So yeah, that was kind of the workload. It wasn't awful at all, and it didn't count, so I didn't put too much pressure on myself. It's not truly representative because had coronavirus not happened, I'd have 2 more essays due in next term and exams, and we had these like mini project things coming up, but that obviously isn't going ahead now. How quickly do you make friends? I think this is kind of difficult to answer because like I have like different levels of closeness with different friends. Like, I think it took me definitely a while to make close friends, but like to make like general acquaintance friends, people you can go out with, like not long at all. I think most people tend to make friends with their flat in Freshers Week. Like everyone's being friendly, everyone wants friends. Like so if you're just friendly with everyone, like introduce yourself, like be a bit ballsy, go up to people and say hi, aprise, what's your name, what are you studying, stuff like that. Like, so yeah, Freshers Week everyone made friends. Then obviously not everyone stuck with the friends they made in Freshers Week. Like I generally did, but then I just made more friends. So I made friends on my course, and then I joined Netball, made friends through that, and then made friends with people who I just met on nights out or from like other flats. It's quite easy to make friends if you want to put in the effort and go and introduce yourself to people, but if you're going to be quiet, like people aren't necessarily going to come up to you, so you need to be like putting in the effort, I guess. Almost everyone I've met at uni has got friends. So someone's asked, how did you find the psychology work? Was it harder than A-level? There was a lot of stuff that we already covered at A-level, so like research methods, I basically knew all of that from like both A-level psych and then a bit of A-level maths in there as well. We did like a module on attachment, so we did like Bowlby, and then we did like behaviourist stuff, like the approaches. Like I felt that doing the A-level did really help me out because there was loads of stuff that I already knew, but then there's like super random things that you wouldn't have ever thought about doing in A-level. Like we had a module on dementia, so I think doing the A-level made the course easier. I don't know how to compare it to A-level. It's quite different to A-level because you learn like the content around the essays, whereas at degree you don't like learn evaluation points and like AO1 and AO2 and AO3, kind of just learn the topics, but it's not harder at all. And I think there's more focus on like learning specific facts because the multiple choice questions you get in first year like really call on specific facts. Yeah, that was kind of what was more difficult, I guess. It's probably about the same, if not easier. What was Constantine like? Psych, which is the college I was in. I think Constantine and Langwith are super similar. They're both on East Campus, they're right next to each other. Both are the only colleges with 3/4 beds, super modern. Pretty much the same. I think the bedrooms in Langwith are a bit smaller, but the kitchens are much bigger and they are much nicer. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. In terms of the like reputation of the colleges, I think Constantine has a more known reputation. Like Langwith is seen as like Constantine's like little sister or something, I don't know. And the funny thing is about the two of them is they basically cost the same, but Constantine has the reputation of being full of girls who went to private school, who own horses, whose dads pay for their accommodation, whereas Langwith doesn't. And that's kind of the reputation. So if you're like introducing your college and you're from Constantine, you always feel like you're gonna get some sort of reaction when you say that. Like you never do, but like I think one of the only things about it is it doesn't really have like its own like bar, whereas Langwith has Glasshouse and Constantine only has the little forum, which is like a little games room, common room kind of thing. It was easy to make friends and stuff in your flat. Definitely. I think we all did Freshers Week together, obviously, so we do like pre's together. We all got to know each other through like drinking games, and then we'd all go out together as well, and then like, you know, wake up the next morning together, laugh at what you did the night before. So like it's really easy to make friends in your flat. Like obviously not everyone does, and I think from speaking to people, I was in a position where I was actually in a really good flat. Like almost everyone got on really well, and that's not always the case, but majority of people like make their closest friends in their flat. And then like obviously everyone will go and make dinner around the same time, so that's like another good time to bond and then like sit down and eat it together. And also I feel like everyone goes in wanting to be friends with their flat, because it must just be such a nightmare to hate your flat and go into the kitchen and just feel tense. Yeah, I think everyone just wants to be friends. Are college stereotypes true? Yes and no. Like there is kind of like some truth in every stereotype, I always think. You can find fun people and good people in every college. There's one stereotype that Alcuin doesn't exist and it's really quiet, and I kind of think that's true. Like I've literally met 2 people from Alcuin, but then obviously that's just my own experience. There's the whole reputation that everyone in Constantine is rich, their dad pays for their accommodation, but a lot of people are in Constantine because they got the full student loan. They're not always true. The reputation that people from Halifax are just like roadmen and they do loads of drugs, from what I've experienced, not really the case. But the stereotypes are kind of just a bit of banter as well, like another good way to have a conversation. They have all like little bus chants, like Derwent's got asbestos, shit on other colleges, and it's just quite funny. Like I think everyone just enjoys the whole stereotype thing unless you're like on the wrong end of it, I guess. Do people get into psychology of lower grades than AAA? Yes, a few people that I have met have. How was your freshers experience? Be honest, was it good? I thought freshers was good, but I think I was in a really weird headspace in freshers. Like I don't think I wanted to open up to my flat very much. I just felt really weird. Like it was really weird being away from home, drinking so much with like a completely new like life, like so suddenly. So I think if you don't enjoy freshers, like it's not the end of the world. Like the weeks after will probably be better as you become more comfortable with the people you're around. But at York they do freshers a bit differently, so every college will have a week planned out by the like department of the college, I guess. So it's like all planned for you. All you need to buy is the college wristband, and then you can buy the students union one as well. That kind of happens the week after, so there's kind of a 2-week freshers. It's all set up for you and you have sticks, so second and third year contacts looking after you, making sure you get to all the right places. So it's really well organised, and people from other unis that I've spoken to, like my friends and stuff, like didn't have that at all. Like they had to like plan all their events like through like Fatsoma and just go to random ones with random people and maybe not even go to their flat, which is like so different to York. Like we went with our flat and our whole college to everything, like same prees, same club every night. And there were like some, obviously like there was choices on what you could do each night, but like it gave like you a massive opportunity to like make friends because everyone was going to the same place afterwards. So like the whole college would be queuing at the bus stop together, everyone would get the bus together, and yeah, I just thought it was really good. But wait, is it worth living on East with better accommodation? I personally think it is, but it really depends on your opinion. And part of the reason I lived on East as well was because most of the West accommodation is catered and I did not want to be catered at all. I've heard like stories, like I haven't been to much West accommodation, but there's this block called N Block and I'll put it on the screen, and apparently there's like 20 people to a kitchen with like 1 hob. That's like the worst. Like I just think that'd be a bit shit. Something about West as well is that all the accommodation is the same and like built at the same time and stuff, so you're not gambling with like what type of accommodation you're going to get in a certain college, whereas some colleges like Vanbrugh and James, like they have some like newer nicer accommodation and some like really horrible accommodation, so like you don't really know what you're going to get when you apply. Is the collegiate system actually relevant / a big thing at York? I don't think it's like as relevant as it is at like Oxbridge or Durham, like main factor where like every college has a bar, and then obviously at Oxbridge you like apply to the college and like you do, I think you do your tutoring or something in the college, but like with York it's literally just your accommodation and then like a little reputation fun thing going along. In second year, I don't think it will make much of a difference. Did you feel like there was pressure to go out and drink lots? No, I didn't personally feel this, but that's because I wanted to. I think there's loads of people who don't go out and they're totally happy to not go out, like no one makes them. Like obviously people are like, oh yeah, if you want to come out, it'll be fun, we'll like make sure you have a good time. But it's all like friendly pressure, I guess. I remember one time I decided to have like a sober night out, like woo, and like everyone was saying, like I was sat there drinking like water at Prees because I think I'd had the flu or something the week before, so I was like, no, I'm not drinking. I think when you're at Prees and everyone around you is like gradually getting more drunk and you're like sober, you can feel like a bit more pressure to drink, I guess, but it just depends on like how set you are. Like no one's gonna like literally make you do something you don't want to do. I think it's also good, like well intentioned, like it's fun to try it out. If you've never gone clubbing before, like try it once, see if you like it. But yeah, no, I think everyone's very accepting of the fact that some people don't want to go out and don't want to drink. What's the nightlife? What is the nightlife like? I think the nightlife in York is good, but it's not amazing. I come from like a super small town, so for me it's perfect. Like it's not too crazy, but it's like way better than what I have at home. Like I think if you wanted a big night out, you could just go over to Leeds, I guess. We've got like 3 or 4 clubs, like 2 of them closed, Fibbers and Mansion closed, which is sad. So we've got Revs, Salvos, and Cuda, and then there's other like smaller bars and clubs like Pop World, Flares, Jaloo, Society, and then there's like loads and loads of bars and pubs. So yeah, the nightlife is good. It's a lot smaller and it's a lot nicer. A main thing about York actually is because it's like basically one of the nicer cities in Yorkshire and classier ones. There's a lot of hen and stag do's at the weekend, so if you go out on a Saturday night, you're more likely to like see like people, lots of locals and like people chuntering in the streets and stuff. And if you go to like a normal bar at the weekend, it's usually locals night and it's a bit of a different vibe. But I think that's the case with a lot of places. Best netball memory, oh I don't know. I have loads of good netball memories. I think in general, pre-drinks with punch is always really fun. How many netball training sessions have you actually gone to? I went to 1 second term, and then I think I went to 3 or 4 in first term, which is really good. And I played 1 game in first term, and I was so proud of myself. Yeah, no one's like on your back about going to most sports if they're just college. So like if you want to just join a sports team for the lols and not actually go to training and just go on the socials, like most are pretty chill about it, unless it's like, you know, like a uni sport. Or like, what accommodation have I spent my first year in? Would I recommend? I was in ensuite accommodation in Constantine. Would recommend, but it is the most expensive, so it depends on like your budget. But I would also say non-ensuite is pretty decent as well. Like the bathrooms are cleaned every day, and there's like 4 or 5 bathrooms for a corridor of 12. One of my friends was like in one of those, and she ended up having, the bathrooms weren't like evenly dispersed throughout the corridor, so she was only sharing her bathroom with 1 girl, and then that girl dropped out, so she literally had her own bathroom, and she was paying like so much less than everyone else who was in ensuite accommodation, and she was getting it cleaned every day. So I mean, going for shared is like fine as well. Okay, how did you find managing money, especially with buying your own food, etc.? This is kind of like a whole topic, and I think around like September time, when everyone was like gearing up to go to uni for the first time, I'll do like a full video about it. To be fair, I was always very lucky because I had my YouTube money coming in. Like it's not loads, but it was like a safety net, I guess. Like if I overspent, like it was okay because I had that. When I bought like clothes online or stuff that I didn't need, that always came out of YouTube money. And I was also extremely fortunate that my dad was paying for my accommodation, so I had my student loan, and after my accommodation money had been paid, like I was left to manage everything myself, which I think was really helpful. I wasn't relying on anybody else to like give me money to survive. Like my accommodation was sorted, but then I was left to budget everything else, whereas I've had other people, like, their parents send them spending money, and then their student finance goes on their accommodation, so they're like relying on their parents to send them money. So if I went in my overdraft, that was on me. Like I had to sort that out. I personally didn't find it too bad. York has shorter terms as well, so I could spend more in a week than I would if I had like 12-week terms. So I basically just divided all my student loan by 30, which is the amount of weeks I was supposed to be at uni, an amount that I could spend in a week, and then I like reduced that by like 10 or 20 pounds. And then I had 2 bank accounts. So I had one that I was that my student loan went into, and then I had my student bank account that I would spend, like I would use to spend my money on. So every week I transfer my weekly budget into my one that I would spend my money on, and then basically I just stuck to that, I guess. I did my shops every 2 weeks, and then I just topped up on little bits in between. It would have been like about £20 a week for food, if that. I did go into my overdraft quite a lot, I won't lie, because when you're on a night out and you've got contact lists, I'd get excited and buy everyone drinks, which was so stupid. So I'd sometimes come back and I'd be like, yeah, I spent £50 last night, kill me. So I ended up swapping my cards. So I was using my old card from when I was like 14 that did not let me go into my overdraft, and it did not have contactless. So if I ran out of money for that week, I could not buy anything on a night out, which was very, very good. So my money managing was so much better after that. Yeah, it wasn't bad at all, but I think the fact that I had like my YouTube as a safety net, and that was where all my like unnecessary stuff was being bought, and the fact that my accommodation was paid for was very fortunate. And I know people who've had to like work a job to pay their accommodation and still struggle for money because their student finance doesn't cover their accommodation or their living costs. So is first year as good as it's hyped up to be, e.g. drinking, nightlife, etc.? I'd say yes, because like if you're gonna go out and like have a mad time, you know, first year is the time to do it when your degree doesn't count. So I think everyone's got the whole mentality of, yeah, first year doesn't count, let's have a great time and go out for ridiculous amounts, drink huge amounts. And honestly, I don't regret it at all, because it didn't count at all. Like, I wanted to get a first in my first year, but everyone's now progressing to second year with regardless of their results so far. So I'm like, I kind of wish I'd gone out more now. And I think also for a lot of people, like we're at a good university, so most of us will have done well in our A-levels. We've probably not had a very fun past 2 years. I remember like during A-levels I was like, I'm really not enjoying this, I'm really stressed, I have no social life, I haven't gone on a night out at all since I've turned 18, and I kind of was like giving up my social life to get good A-levels so I could get to a good uni and just have a good time. I think I was like, yeah, Rhiannon, just relax with your work, like, you know, obviously do it, go to most of your lectures. If you miss something, it's not that deep. If you don't do your reading, it's fine. My priority this year was just have a good time, make some memories. Is York diverse? I feel like there's barely any Black, Asian or minority ethnic students, majority middle class. I think, yeah, York isn't a majorly diverse uni. I think there's not a lot of Black people there. There is quite a large proportion of Asian people there. Minority ethnic, like Eastern European and like other ethnicities, I don't think there's loads, I won't lie. But everyone is like, obviously, when they like allocate flats, they don't allocate based on like ethnicity, and I've heard they do that at some unis. Like they'll put all the internationals in one block, which I don't think is great, because then you don't like meet other people as easily. So I think the fact that everyone's placed randomly helps like everyone like integrate a bit more. Like if you're up to have a good time, people are gonna want to spend time with you regardless of your race. Yeah, I've met people from like Hong Kong, China, Brazil, America, Ireland. That's not really minority ethnic. But yeah, definitely not as ethnically diverse as other unis like Durham or like Leicester or anything. It is quite a white middle class uni, and there's quite a lot of Oxbridge rejects. But okay, but did you meet Bradley? He's the best. Yes, he gave us a lecture on memory and it was so cute, I loved it. If you don't know, Bradley's like really important psychologist in like the field of memory, and like you study him a lot at A-level. So when I found out he worked at York, I was shook. Got through all the questions, and this video is going to be so long and my camera's flashing, so we're going to call an end to this. If you've got any other questions that you don't feel like I've covered, like comment them down below. I'm happy to film a second part. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're all not going too mad inside your houses. Goodbye!